Hello everyone, my name's Richard Case. I'm here today at Worcester County Court reporting on my court case. So I'm suing the Ministry of Defence, as it turns out, for a recruitment into the because of my recruitment into the Royal Air Force. Anyway, so my history of why I'm suing the Ministry of Defence and the Royal Air Force. So last summer, it's now June 2025. Last summer I decided that I wanted to apply to become a reserve in the Royal Air Force. Mainly just because I've always had an interest in aviation, and I wanted to help my country out, you know, serve my country. I decided not to do it when I was sort of 20 years old. And now I'm 45, and I thought, you know, I'd help them out. It's just kind of a weekend every month. Why not give it a go? So it all went fine until the medical happened. So that was October 2024. I passed most things in the medical, but right up until they asked me about any asthma that I might have had. Me being honest, even though actually in the open day that we had at RAF Cosford, the officer there had actually warned us not to tell the medical anything that, you know, wasn't really an issue. They actually warned us of this, and me being stupid, I decided to be honest. So he asked me about asthma. I said, well, I used to have it when I was a child, sort of between the ages of 10 and 16. It was always very mild, you know, not really an issue. And I also have an allergy to dogs and horses, which again just brings on very mild asthma. But I don't have a dog, I don't have a horse, so it very rarely happens. That was my big mistake, really. So basically, the doctor, I don't think was very experienced in asthma. I think he's a retired surgeon, probably never treated asthma, and the criteria, the mod criteria for the medicals had changed in August 2024, so I suspect he was also using out-of-date criteria. And he basically asked me how many acute episodes of asthma have I had since the age of 3? Me not being a medical expert, I'm an engineer by trade, I do software engineering and electronic engineering. I said, well, what does acute mean? You know, I had a vague understanding of what acute means, but I asked him, and all he said was temporary. And it didn't sound right to me. Acute to me means, well, obviously I've since looked it up. Acute means sudden, serious and urgent, not just temporary. But at the time, I had no choice. I was being honest, so I said, well, if it only means... and I did actually question him twice. And they said, well, if it only means temporary, it means all of my asthma when I was a child was temporary because it wore off. So I said, you know, acute episodes of asthma, I said 20. And from that, he marked me down. He made a statement on my medical record saying, has had asthma attacks, including exercise-induced, and has wheezed to dogs and horses. And that was one of the reasons he deemed me unfit. There is another reason, but I won't go into that. That's, yeah, I can appeal that if it ever comes to it. So, I wasn't very happy at that. I got the letter the day after, so this is the 22nd of October. I got the result on the 23rd, I think, and I immediately complained. So, you may not know, so the recruitment medicals, certainly for the RAF, I think it's different for the Army and the Navy, is done through a contractor. I will not name the contractor, although it's pretty obvious who they are. They've recently lost the contract to Serco, and I think the reasons may become obvious. yeah, so I complained to the contractor, who in turn had employed the doctor as a third contractor. So it goes RAF or Ministry of Defence to the contractor to their doctor who they employed. So there's three parties involved. So I complained. I got a response about a week later from the chief medical officer of the company involved. He basically sided with the doctor. He actually misquoted me to make it seem like it was worse. But the one good thing he did do was he actually admitted that I'd been misinformed in the assessment. So he said that it's a shame that the doctor was unable to explain to me what acute meant, which to me is a pretty big admission. And he also did another thing in my favour, was he gave me the actual criteria that they'd marked me down against, which was actually different. So he marked me down differently against different criteria than the doctor in the assessment themselves, because the question they asked me, the number of acute episodes of asthma since the age of 3, relates to one particular criteria, and the chief medical officer didn't actually find me in breach of that particular criteria. So I've got two different assessments from two different doctors for the same company based on the same evidence. Seems a bit off. Anyway, so I complained all through November, December, into January. I kind of realised in January that I was not going to get anywhere with the contractor themselves. So then I switched my attention to the Royal Air Force. I decided that I was going to need some evidence, so I requested my medical records from my GP. They were able to provide me with a very brief medical, they call it a medical summary report, which was only a one-page thing, but basically just gives you a very brief overview of anything that's recorded on their computer system, of any medications, any particular diseases you have, or any vaccinations, all that kind of thing. And surprise, surprise, nothing is mentioned on there about asthma whatsoever, going back to 1994. Like I said, it was only very mild. I did used to have an inhaler. I think I only ever had one in 6 years. So I used it very, very intermittently. And basically I grew out of it in regards to exercise. I never had a problem after the age of about 16. I used to cycle everywhere while I was at university, never had an issue. I could go and run. So in my third video, I'm hoping to go for a run or a cycle, and you'll see, I'm reasonably fit. I can go for a cycle without any issues. And I may have to use that in court as evidence. So anyway, so I got the medical evidence from my GP. I then sent a letter before action to the Royal Air Force. At that point, I didn't realise that I was supposed to sue the Ministry of Defence. All my correspondence had been with the Royal Air Force and their contractor. So I just sent letters to those, and never had anyone say, "Oh, you're sending the letters to the wrong place" or anything. The Royal Air Force sent me, I recorded the letter before action, so I knew it was delivered. They sent me confirmation they'd received it, and they'd sent it to some legal department in the Royal Air Force, which turned out to be the wrong department. And I didn't hear anything else. That was in March I sent the letter. Under the date, so I'm trying to make the amendment to my medical record under the Data Protection Act 2018. There, under section 46, there is you have a right to amend inaccurate data held against you, so that's what I'm doing. so basically, I'm trying to address my letters and everything to the data protection officer under my right to amend. So I gave, and under that statute, they have a calendar month to respond. They can extend that if there's a particular reason, like if it's a very complicated request or something like that. They can write back to you and request an extension, which they didn't do. So basically, after the calendar month, I hadn't heard anything. So I took the decision, rightly or wrongly, to pursue it in court. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's my statutory right. It may seem trivial, it may seem silly, and it may turn out to be very silly. But anyway, that's what I decided to do. I don't like having inaccurate data held against me on my medical record, especially because that is quite serious in my book. And I'm also interested to see, I've heard things about the judiciary and how it works these days and things like that. So I was sort of interested to see, I'm interested in law, I'm interested to sort of learn what the process is and just see what happens really. So anyway, the claim started in May. It took me a while to get all the forms right. And I had my first hearing. For some reason, the court did it very quickly. The claim was only started on early May. I think it was about the 13th of May, something like that. And had my hearing on the 6th of June, I think it was. Yeah, so I'll go into more detail on the hearing in my second video. What else can I say leading up to that? Not much really. I mean, they haven't really given me any particular reason other than them just saying, we won't amend it. The contractor, we won't amend it. The RAF hasn't really said anything. They actually, when I told them, because you keep in touch with a recruiter through their website. And when I said I was, hello there.
Hello, sorry to interrupt. Can I ask what you're doing, sir?
Shooting a video, recording my court case.
You can't record inside the boundaries, I'm afraid. You'd have to be on the other side of the fence.
Is it? I thought it's public property.
No recording or taking photos or taking videos at all here within the grounds. You have to go outside the gate. That's what we have to tell the press as well. So feel free to do it, but you need to do it outside the gates.
Hello, are you alright?
Okay, all right, yeah.
You okay?
Yeah,
you alright?
Yeah, not bad. I'm back. All right.
Nice to see you. But you cannot be here doing that in front of me, okay?
Yeah, okay, all right. Didn't realise that. I thought it was a public place. Okay, so I've just been moved on by they're actually quite friendly, the bunch in the in the security office at the front. Yeah, so apparently I can't record on the premises itself, but outside is perfectly fine. I'm hoping to shoot a number of videos as a series just to show kind of what the process is like and just to what state the UK government and legislature has become, because it just seems to have become a ridiculous process. So yeah, I'm planning to do a series of videos. This one will be on the history of my case, like why I'm suing the Royal Air Force. The next one will be more about the first hearing which I've had. So the court case is ongoing, so I need to be a bit careful about what I say to not be in contempt of court. Yeah, so the next one will be what happened in the hearing. I won't be mentioning any particular names. I'll try and keep it as anonymous as I can. The one after that will hopefully be me providing evidence that I don't have asthma, as I'll tell you in a second. Like, it's all about my childhood asthma, which I don't have anymore. And then the fourth one will hopefully be some tips and tricks to help you guys. If you're litigants in person, then yeah, you might find the last video interesting because it's certainly been an interesting journey for me so far.